Very good morning and welcome to NBL Now. It's our first edition for 2025. It almost feels a little bit weird saying 2025, but here we are, and we start with an absolute cracker tonight between the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix travelling to take on the Sydney Kings at Kudos Bank Arena. That and a whole lot more to talk about. I'm Jack Heverin. Derek Rucker, Happy New Year to you, my man.
Happy New Year, Jack, and it's been so exciting this holiday period, but it's a big one tonight.
The hits just keep coming. And as I mentioned, we won't have to wait long for the next one. It did feel a little bit odd, I must admit, to not have a game yesterday. I was sort of at a bit of a loose end, but all that means is that the drama builds for tonight. Sydney taking on Southeast Melbourne, as I mentioned, Bul Kuol back for the Kings.
Yeah, this is a big one. The Kings have missed quality perimeter shooting, which Bul Kuol provides. He shot it at 41% last year from the three, and this year he was off to a similar type of efficiency level at about 41% again. But they need his defense. They need his size, a guard that can help on the glass, an area where Sydney has been dominated this season. Provided he's healthy, he can significantly improve the fortunes of the Kings, who are on a 2-game home slide. And things are getting tight, Jack, in Sydney.
Yeah, they are. And we may as well go through that. Kelly LePepe, by the way, not available tonight because of a hamstring injury. So that doesn't help their rebounding issues. Might be a good chance for Jason Spurgeon. But the Kings, Derek, are fascinating to me. Brian Goorjian took the fall after the Adelaide loss a couple of days ago, said it was on him to not have the players ready. They got jumped by the 36ers in the first quarter. There are discussions now about an import guard coming in sooner rather than later. It seems as though that's what Gorge wanted, but not necessarily what front office wanted. They are a fascinating watch this space, I think.
It is, and we won't know who is correct in that discussion about what type of player is required until the season plays out. And I've said numerous times that I feel like they need help on the glass. They need help with interior defense. And if Kelly LePepe is going to be out of the lineup for some period of time, well, that really impacts their ability to offensive rebound the basketball. And lately, he's been doing a better job on the defensive glass. When you combine that with the fact that Cam Oliver is in some type of situation, whether it's a doghouse, whether he's not suited for the style of play, whatever it is, Jack, he only played 10 minutes the other night. Okay, so who's going to make up for those minutes? Where are those minutes going to come from? Who's going to give you size? I'm hearing, as you alluded to earlier, that Jason Spurgeon is going to get a chance to show what he can do tonight. Is he ready for the moment? Because they cannot afford another loss at home. Now, this guard situation, I kind of see it, Jack. I see where they feel like they can get Adams off the ball a little bit and they can find someone to direct and do all of this. But is this player going to be any better than Sean Bruce? Is this player going to have minutes allocated to him once Bul Kuol gets back into the lineup? It's fascinating. I don't really like the decision, but I'm open to see how it pans out.
I thought the interview that Chris Pongras did with you and Brad and Felix on Overtime on Monday was really interesting. And the quote around, and I'm sort of just grabbing some of these words. It wasn't verbatim what he said, but basically said it's not going to be a huge impact. It's kind of almost think of like an Ian Hummer situation in Tasmania where you're going to have a solid citizen come in. It doesn't, to your point, it doesn't exactly have you jumping out of your skin to see this new guy come in, does it?
It doesn't. And, that interview was conducted before the game. And, then LePepe goes out there and gets hurt during the game. So, you wonder how that would have potentially impacted the choice of the type of player that they would have taken if they had known Kelly was going to go down. And look, right now, you can see there's a bit of, it's tough right now in Sydney because this team had expectations of a championship. And, I spend so much time covering the Kings, and I really enjoy all the people. They're great. They're great to the media. They do so much to allow us inside looks at what they do. Brian Goorjian is very open with his discussions on and off the camera. Chris Pongras the same. They do a fantastic job, and we want to ensure that relationship between us and them stays really strong. But at the same time, we have a job to analyze, and right now, It has been one of the most fascinating teams in Australian sport to cover over the past 2 seasons for one reason or another.
So then you've got the Sydney Kings, who seem like they're a long way from being settled right now, and they're trying to work a bunch of stuff out. Their opponents, the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, Derek. I know that Brad and Joel led with this yesterday on NBL Now, and as they should, and I agree. I think the Phoenix and the Josh King effect is one of the big stories in the league right now.
I always talk about what type of head coach I like, and I like someone who's really tough, who's honest, who's direct, and that gets the best out of his team and his individual players and helps everyone be better. But Jack, I especially admire coaches that are good people and coaches that enjoy the game and come out and are inclusive and they're honest. And that's what Josh King seems to me. The first game he ever coached in Melbourne, he came right over to us, Jack, and initiated a discussion. And they say first impressions mean a lot. And that did mean a lot. And it's pretty much held true to the type of person he is every time I've seen him. So if that's the case with us, I imagine with his team, while it may be tough at times for his team to handle his directness, as long as he's consistent with them on a daily basis about who he is, then they have to respect him. We know now he has the X's and O's covered. I believe they're now 8-3 since he's taken over the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Obviously the first 0-5 start by Mike Kelly was disastrous, and this thing was going down the drain. So for him to come in and resurrect this thing, they're number 3 in the league in defense. They're number 4 and number 5 in offense, and they're sitting right there ready to strike and get a top 4 appearance. It's incredible.
And as we saw in Illawarra, Derek, now is that they believe they can beat anyone, which is a pretty dangerous mindset.
And I like how he puts guys on the bench, but he doesn't necessarily kill their confidence. Now, you may not get extended minutes like you had planned on getting after some mistakes, but he doesn't exile you. He doesn't necessarily kill your confidence for future games. Joe Wieskamp was outstanding in Illawarra. He made a fantastic contribution. He's showing that he's someone who can play in this league. And the maturation and the growth in Nathan Sobey's game in the past couple of months has been really impressive. Nathan Sobey played the perfect basketball game for him in helping his team win down in Wollongong.
So that's the positive. Let's turn to the other end of the table right now. And the Cairns Taipans now on the worst losing streak in franchise history. And it was really, really difficult to watch, I thought, against New Zealand a couple of days ago. They've got a couple of players out at the moment, but it felt like there was more than that. What happens next? When things are this bad, how can you possibly turn it around?
Yeah, well, that game was like the dispirited cup game. Two teams that have really dealt with a lot of unfortunate events throughout the course of the season. But Cairns, you plan for pride at some point, Jack. And so often players focus on where's my next deal coming from? Oh, I want to try and hit these numbers, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just go out, you just have to play good basketball. Imagine if you were just playing pickup somewhere. You would give it everything you got because you love the game. And I think you really have to break it down to just that simplified version of performance and go out and play basketball. Cairns has enough talent. There's no way they should have lost that game at home. And their lead import, Rob Edwards, he has to come up with better performances, Jack. It's just been so skittish and inconsistent throughout the season. He has MVP level talent, but he hasn't been able to bring it into the games on a regular basis. So right now, I would think all the imports need to do essentially what Brisbane's imports were doing for a stretch there. Come together, give us 60, 70 points a game as a unit, and try and turn this thing around quickly.
Just one on Taran Armstrong, and this is not a criticism of Taran, it's more a discussion around the game plan and the mindset. It certainly looks as though he's been given the keys to the car, and Adam Ford told us that pre-season. He's a very, very good young talent. He didn't have a great game the other night, but do they need to abandon that a little bit? Do they need to try and, is it maybe Rob Edwards' turn to lead the team for a couple of weeks, or do they pump the ball down more to Sam Wardenberg? Is there Is there a potential change of approach there, Derek, or do you like that style?
If Taron Armstrong is going to be the lead guard of that team for years to come, then continue doing this. But if you feel like, oh, there's a chance, he might dip out and go somewhere else, then I need to spread that thing out. But essentially, Kyle Adnam had moments the other day where he looked decent, but they're just not strong enough in the backup point guard position. And maybe, they went in last year with the idea of bringing Pat Miller in to provide a bit of mentoring around Taron, but then Taron got hurt. Maybe that needs to be the plan going forward. Maybe you bring in a mature Australian point guard that can help Taron learn the game a little bit more. A guy, not specifically Sean Bruce, but someone like Sean Bruce that can show him what to do in certain occasions and yet still relieve him of his point guard duties so that Taron can still be on the court and not have to be on the bench.
The Adelaide 36ers, you talk about the Sydney Kings being one of the most fascinating teams to watch in Australian sport in the last couple of years. I would challenge you and say the 36ers, more so for the wrong reasons than the right reasons, have been right amongst that. The article a few days ago around player disharmony with the coach, a players meeting, all that sort of stuff, it definitely worked against the Sydney Kings because they came out and they were all on the same page. And I was watching that game, Derek, live, and it was just the little things, Montrez goes for an M1 and Isaac comes and picks him up. And yeah, there was still a few moments, but it looked better. My wonder to you, though, is how do they ensure that that's not a once-off? How do they ensure that that was not everyone sitting around in a circle singing Kumbaya for one game and then it reverts back to the norm in a couple of days' time?
Well, this is a big challenge. And we talked to DJ Vasiljevic on overtime, and I asked him, was this meeting, did it delve into interpersonal problems between players? And he said, no, it wasn't about that at all. We're all united in that regard. We all get along well. And you're right. They did come out. They played with an increased level of intensity. Their focus was really good. But Jack, the personalities are the personalities, and there's volatility. There's volatility in that lineup. But I love the personalities. I love Montrez. I love the up and down. I love how he's so intense, and then he can be really down on himself. I love how Kendrick is intense, and he's so self-determined. I love DJ's personality, but I want to see it all in the positive direction because all it takes is one of those guys. Isaac sulky, Isaac feeling like he's not included, which is reasonable at times, but all it takes is one of those guys to go down with the personality, and it seems to bring the whole group down. So they've got to stay elevated. They've got to stay focused on what they're doing. They can't have any more team meetings, in my opinion. But when they have so much talent, Jack, that they could still make a run, reel off 6 or 7 in a row, and then all of a sudden, they're right back in the playoff hunt. They are the most entertaining team in the competition. We've said this numerous times. And this morning, I've been pondering the MVP race. Who are the real candidates? And Kendrick Davis is right there in that tier, slightly below Bryce Cotton and Trey Kell III, I believe. And, Jack, he's rising quickly.
I agree with that. Forgive my pessimism. They've got a Melbourne team coming at them in 2 days' time who are fresh. They haven't played a lot lately, Melbourne United. They're going to come to Adelaide. They're going to be well-drilled. They're going to be disciplined. I'm happy to be wrong, but I've just got the feeling that win in Sydney is going to be a once-off for the 36ers.
And, if we flip it over to the Melbourne side, they lost those 4 games in a row where they gave up a bunch of points, and all those games were in Melbourne. Then they took the flight up to Cairns. They were okay. They weren't great. I think if they performed like they did against Cairns, Jack, they lose that game probably to 6 of the 9 other teams in the competition. Okay? Adelaide are going to be hungry to win a game at home. We had kind of driven that place to be a fortress. They've lost 4 in a row, I believe, at home. They have not looked good at home. So we've got these 2 Rams coming together in this game that's going to be really intriguing. And I hear you with your pessimism. I totally get it. But I'm a little bit pessimistic about Melbourne United, although I trust the Melbourne United infrastructure and just that championship ethos and the talent and the maturity and the professionalism they have.
Well, we're going to rename that game on Saturday then to the Pessimism Cup between Adelaide and Melbourne, and they can work it out from there. Hey, one before we finish up, D, this morning, News Corp reporting that Will Weaver, former coach of the Sydney Kings, now very much in the hunt for the vacant Boomers job right now. Dean Vickerman's name is still floating around. There are still some other international candidates, but at first glance, how does Will Weaver grab you?
Decent. I mean, it doesn't make me, want to run the camera and start watching practices or anything. I feel like he's obviously a qualified coach, but I'm not sure if he's been a head coach at a high enough level consistently, Jack. And that's what I think ultimately BA would be looking for in its search. And, I'm hearing along the rumor mill that they perhaps want a guy that spent more time in the NBA, so maybe that rules Dean Vickerman out. I think it's a really tough one because it's not really an NBL story, so we're not able to get our fingers and hands on it as much as we normally could for, say, if it was an NBL coaching hire. Look, the landscape is vast for trying to bring in someone. I just have a feeling it's going to be someone out of the NBA, and who that is, I don't know. Obviously, I put Adam Caporn kind of in the similar situation as Will Weaver, been assistant coach in the NBA. Does he have enough head coaching, game experience to warrant a position at the next international FIBA tournament as the lead of the Boomers?
I get the sense it won't be the last name that's floated around that we discuss between now and whenever the appointment comes. Hey, I'll see you in Sydney tonight. I'm just about to jump on a plane. I'm going to sit in the stands as a fan. I haven't done this in a long time. I'm going to sit there and watch this game play out and see how it all unfolds.
Well, looking forward to seeing you. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. And can the Kings lift and hold off the Phoenix? Because the other thing, Jack, that we didn't mention, the Phoenix are raising up the ladder. Like, they've got to have to get real close to Sydney if they knock off Sydney tonight. So enjoy the game. Have a safe flight, and I'll see you this evening.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us on NBL Now. Don't forget, 7:30 tonight, the Kings and the Phoenix at Kudos Bank Arena. We'll catch you tomorrow.